Good morning, everyone. Top of the hour, 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm Poppy Harlow. John Berman has the week off. So glad you're with us. We begin with angry voters unleashing on lawmakers back at home. Just watch. It's in the intro here. Town halls across the country erupting in shouting matches as you see lawmakers trying to field questions from angry constituents on everything from immigration to the travel ban to Obamacare. Some Republicans dismissing those protesters as just paid activists. The president tweeting, the so-called angry crowds in home districts of some Republicans are actually, in numerous cases, planned out by liberal activists. Sad. Kyung Lah has been to many of those town halls across the country. She joins me now in New York with what you're hearing. The president says they're liberal activists. His White House spokesman says they're paid and AstroTurf. What have you seen?
Well, let's talk about the organizational structure first. So they are responding to a guidebook that was put out. So what I'm hearing from the grassroots level, what we're seeing some of this, engagement that we see with these lawmakers, it's coming from the guidebook, but they're not being specifically led by anyone. These are people acting upon themselves who feel empowered because they now have this step-by-step manual.
What is the net effect and what is the net hope? I mean, is this all about flipping seats in 2018? How do they carry this anger and these words into action?
It depends location by location. In some places, yes, they want to try to flip the district. But these are, that's a tough goal. That's a long-term goal for 2018. What we've seen is a different sort of sentiment in each one. The issues, again, Obamacare, immigration. It's important, though, to understand that this is about voter engagement. I want you to listen to these voters talking to their congressman. Here's a couple of examples.
We have in the White House now a notorious white nationalist as a special advisor to the President of the United States. I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
First of all, I don't speak for the President. I think the President...
We'd like to know how you feel about it. You're our congressman.
Yes.
You have to acknowledge that we got too damn many people on food stamps in Kentucky. These coal jobs are not coming back, and now these people don't have the insurance they need because they're poor. If you can answer any of that, I'll sit down and shut up like Elizabeth Warren.
You can see the senator there, responding. He was trying to respond as well as he could. And what I am hearing is that people are grateful that a lot of these lawmakers, knowing that they're going to get hit by this, that they're still showing up.
I mean, you showed in the last hour this sign of, like, where is Darrell Issa?
Yeah, some of them are choosing not to, and they're getting hit on social media. Their constituents saying, what are you afraid of? We're just your voters. But can you, in some ways, can you blame them? I mean, Senator Joni Ernst, she walked into that room. She was looking at an uphill climb throughout. And then right after that combative town hall, there was immediately some reporting on Twitter that she cut it short. But, we're hearing from her office today that she didn't, that what ended up happening was that she tried to answer as much as possible. But look at the crowd. It was hard to speak.
You know what, though? They work for us, the people, and we, the taxpayer, pay their bills, and so people want their questions answered. Pay their bills, pay their salary. Thank you, Kyung. Nice to have you on. We appreciate it. A lot to discuss here, clearly, with our political panel. CNN political commentator and Republican strategist Doug Heye is with us. Patricia Murphy, who just wrote a column about the winners and losers in all of this, joins us. She's a columnist at the Daily Beast at Roll Call. And Angela Rye is here, CNN political commentator and former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus. Nice to have you all here. And let me begin with you, Patricia, because you made this list of who wins and who loses in terms of Republicans in this. Who wins? Someone like Joni Ernst or Marsha Blackburn, who gets screamed at, or Mitch McConnell, or someone who just doesn't show up?
Well, the people who I listed on my list of winners and losers are the members of Congress who were showing up and taking the criticism. Somebody like Mark Sanford, who you had on in the previous hour, he stayed for 3 hours at a town hall meeting over the weekend, just fielding people's complaints. People were very upset, anxious, in some cases confused about what might be happening in Congress over the next several months. And Congressman Sanford just listened and answered to the best of his ability. And to me, voters are sophisticated enough to understand that their congressman isn't always going to agree with them, but they do expect their congressman to listen to them. And it's not just to listen to the Republican fish fries who are excited to have you and welcoming you to come to their fundraiser. They want their congressman to hear from them even if they don't agree with them.
So, Doug, the presidents are piled on Twitter, right? He said these are liberal activists. And as Kyung said, I mean, some of them are following this guidebook that was put out, but some of them are people like that woman in Kentucky screaming, saying, too many people are on food stamps, and now they can't afford their health care, and what are you going to do about it? Here, though, is how the White House press secretary addressed some of these folks not long ago, earlier this month, when he was asked about it on Fox News.
Do you sense, instead of being an organic disruption, do you sense that there's an organized pushback and people are being paid to protest?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, protesting has become a profession now. They have every right to do that, don't get me wrong, but I think that we need to call it what it is. It's not these organic uprisings that we've seen through the last several decades. The Tea Party was a very organic movement. This has become a very paid, AstroTurf type movement.
Paid AstroTurf type movement, maybe some, but not all. Doug Heye, you're a Republican strategist, and even you take issue with that.
Well, I do. Look, I think there's truth to that. One of the people I follow on Twitter is Guy Cecil, no stranger to CNN audiences, who ran Priorities USA for Hillary Clinton, the big super PAC. He's running a town hall forum, a Twitter account that he was linking to just yesterday to get people to town halls. So clearly there is organizing happening within Washington, D.C. Also, clearly, there are a lot of people throughout this country, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, who are upset and concerned about the direction that the country is going into. And so whether they're paid or not paid, to quote Bill Murray famously from Meatballs, it just doesn't matter. Republicans have to be prepared for this. They have to have plans of action, and they need to know what they're going to say going in. And also remember, these are their constituents. They should treat them accordingly. Offer them some coffee.
I don't know if coffee's gonna do it, but it might be a start. Look, anytime you quote Meatballs on this program, we're off to a good start. Angela Rye, to you, do you believe people like Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, who did this joint town hall with Congressman Mark Sanford, came out and he basically said this isn't necessarily the most productive way to get things done? You know, what risk does someone like him saying that run, or someone like Darrell Issa and others who are just not showing up at these? What risk do you believe they run?
Well, I think that Tim Scott is, of course, entitled to his own opinion, but I think you have a group of very frustrated Americans, 46 million and counting probably, who are trying to figure out what is the process for getting things done. You have a Democratic Party that is very much, I would say, in an identity crisis, or at least finding itself right now after a very hard election that, frankly, many of us know and see by the numbers we won the popular vote. So there's a lot of confusion happening. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of anger. You see the president's approval ratings. You're trying to understand, you know, what Congress is really going to do to hold him accountable, and you've not seen much movement in his first few weeks here, or almost, you know, over a month now. So I think that's the real issue. We don't know what he's going to do to move an agenda that impacts and helps the disenfranchised in this country, the marginalized in this country. And whether people are paid or not, I don't have any proof of that. It's interesting to see an administration that is, frankly, hell-bent on talking about fake news, that they would also be the pushers of that type of news. It's very interesting that they just can't take it for what it is, and that is strategic disagreement and resistance to an agenda that does not include all Americans.
Patricia, to you, what we're hearing is that some of these representatives, Republican representatives, especially in these swing districts, are making the political calculation that it's better for them maybe to not show up, maybe to have these town halls and not actually be in the room, and then be vulnerable to that YouTube moment of all of those jeers and what we just aired. Politically speaking, let's step aside from what is right to the American people in answering your constituents. Politically speaking, from a political calculus, what's the best answer for those people that are more vulnerable in those swing districts?
Yeah, not smart not to listen, and not smart to even not pretend to listen to your constituents. And it's not a theoretical question. If you go back to what happened in 2009 with the Tea Party protesters, which I believe was a very organic movement, those protesters were very real, but Democratic leaders, including Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid, literally called it AstroTurf, just like Sean Spicer is calling this AstroTurf. It's an attempt to delegitimize and ignore what's happening in their own districts. But Democrats lost 63 House seats in 2010, 5 Senate seats. It's just, whether they're paid or not, I don't believe they are. I talked to a lot of people who say, could you just tell my congressman I'm not getting paid? Democrats lost big, and I think that the way they handled those town halls was a big piece of that.
But Doug, you make the argument, because just Doug, to this, you make the argument in your CNN opinion piece on it this week that Republicans are not, bound to holding these.
No, I don't think it's an either-or proposition. Look, if you want to go to a huge forum like Joni Ernst did or Chuck Grassley did, Tim Scott did, I agree with Tim Scott on this. It's not an either-or proposition. You can go to those events that really reward the loudest and angriest voices, or you can do something different. If you want to learn about Obamacare, visit a community health center or a hospital. Talk to doctors and talk to patients. If you want to learn more about education in our country, visit a school. This requires members to be more vigilant in how they represent and how they interact with their constituents, but they don't just have to go to free-for-all forums. They can be smarter and more strategic about that, which the National Republican Congressional Committee and also the House Republican Conference are working with members to make sure that they do, to make sure that these members avoid being seen as being AWOL.
I want to get your guys' take on something else. John Podesta used to run Hillary Clinton's campaign. Her former campaign chairman did an interview on stage at a summit, and he was asked about FBI Director James Comey and his role at all in the election. Here's how he put it.
You have a theory of the case that, that Comey wanted Trump to win, that the FBI wanted Trump to win. There's got to be some theories here.
I think there's sort of two possibilities. There are at least forces within the FBI that wanted her to lose. I'm not sure they were prepared to, they really understood the alternative, but they wanted her to lose. I think that's one possibility. I think the other is just become a cover-your-ass organization. And there was pressure coming up from underneath him, and he succumbed to that pressure.
Angela Rye, let me get your response as Democrat on this panel. What do you think? Is this just sore loser stuff?
I don't agree with the sore loser idea, and I don't want to call John Podesta, who was the chairman of her campaign, a sore loser. I think that he's calling into question things that, again, Americans all over this country have continued to call into question. Do I have any evidence of that? No. But I think that it's fair for him to raise whatever theories he'd like. I certainly have some theories. I've talked about them on air. I have gut feelings. I've talked about them on air, and I definitely support the members of the House and the Senate who are calling for an investigation not only into this election, but ties that Trump has with his business interests and also to Russia. There are all types of issues surrounding this election which would make us, I don't think sore losers, but calling this into reasonable doubt.
You get the last word because we're out of time.